The rain hammered the church roof like God's own judgment. But inside, Joshua Harlan felt the real storm brewing in his chest. "You're not my son anymore," his father spat, the words slicing through the humid Tennessee air. His Bible clutched like a shield against the abomination standing before him. Joshua's knees buckled, the stained-glass saints blurring through hot tears as the congregation's whispers turned to outright gasps. His secret, confessed in a desperate bid for love, now a noose around his neck. He fled that night with nothing but a duffel bag and a Greyhound ticket to New York, the city of dreams where reinvention was as easy as hailing a cab. But dreams curdled fast in the Bowery's shadows. By 25, Joshua was crashing on strangers' couches, slinging coffee at a dingy diner off Delancey Street, his southern drawl a punchline for the hipsters who tipped in loose change. Gay in the Bible Belt had been hell, but queer and broke in the Big Apple? That was a special kind of invisible torture, hookups in dive-bar bathrooms that left him hollow, Grindr notifications buzzing like accusations in the dead of night. It was on one of those endless shifts, steam from the espresso machine fogging his glasses, that Joshua first locked eyes with Daniel Reyes. Daniel slid onto a stool at the counter, rain-slicked hair curling at his temples, a leather messenger bag slung over one shoulder like he owned the chaos of the streets outside. "Black coffee. Large. None of that pumpkin spice bullshit," he said, his voice carrying the easy lilt of someone who'd grown up dodging potholes in Queens. Joshua nodded, hands steady on the pour, but his pulse betrayed him, thumping like a bass line in a club he hadn't dared enter since arriving. Daniel came back the next day, and the day after, always with a book tucked under his arm, Vonnegut one time, Baldwin the next, and a smile that cracked Joshua's armor just a fraction. "You from down south?" Daniel asked on the fourth visit, leaning in like they were sharing state secrets. Joshua hesitated, the ghost of his father's voice echoing, but something in Daniel's dark eyes, patient, unflinching, pulled the truth out. "Nashville. Got run out for." "Well, you know." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. "Yeah, I know. My abuela called it the Devil's Whisper back in Jackson Heights. Took me 3 years to stop flinching at rosaries." They talked until Joshua's boss flicked the lights, the conversation spilling like the coffee Daniel never finished. By week's end, Daniel had coaxed him to a poetry slam in the village, where queer voices roared against the mic like thunder. Joshua stood in the back, heart pounding, as Daniel recited lines about stolen kisses in subway cars and the ache of loving men who loved their silence more. When it ended, Daniel grabbed his hand, casual, electric, and whispered, "Your turn next time." Joshua laughed it off. But that night, alone in his sublet shoebox, he traced the memory of those fingers on his skin, wondering if reinvention could include this, a man who saw him, really saw him. Weeks blurred into months, the diner becoming their ritual. Daniel was a social worker at a nonprofit in Harlem, the kind of guy who fought the system with clipboards and compassion, pulling kids from the cracks of foster care. "They're the real warriors," he'd say, eyes lighting up over his untouched latte. Joshua envied that fire, his own days a grind of burnt toast and leering regulars. But Daniel chipped away at the walls, late-night walks along the East River, where the skyline glittered like a promise, shared slices of ZA at Lombardi's, grease dripping as they debated Springsteen versus Prince. The first kiss happened on a fire escape in Bushwick, fireflies of cigarette butts glowing below. Joshua had confessed the full ugly truth, the disownment, the aimless drift, the fear that he'd never be more than a ghost in his own life. Daniel cupped his face, thumbs brushing away the dampness on his cheeks. "You're not a ghost, Josh. You're the guy who makes the best goddamn pour-over in this city." Their lips met soft at first, then hungry, the metal railing digging into Joshua's back as the world narrowed to the taste of mint and possibility. For the first time since Tennessee, Joshua felt anchored not to shame, but to something real, raw, alive. But love in New York wasn't fairy tales. It was subway delays and missed calls, egos clashing like taxis in traffic. Daniel's job bled into everything. Canceled dates for emergency placements, exhaustion carving lines under his eyes. Joshua tried to understand, pouring extra cream in Daniel's coffee as an apology for his own insecurities bubbling up. "You're always saving the world," he joked, voice edged with something sharper. "Who's saving you?" Daniel would laugh it off, pull him close. But Joshua saw the flicker, the man who gave everything, holding nothing back for himself. It was during Pride that year, rainbow flags snapping like sails in the wind, that Joshua stumbled into his calling. They were marching, Daniel's arms slung around his waist, the crowd a pulsing heartbeat of glitter and chants. A kid no older than 12, perched on a float with a sign reading "Love is Love," caught Joshua's eye. Freckles dusted across a face too serious for summer, eyes scanning the throng like he was memorizing escapes. Later, nursing blisters at a rooftop bar, Daniel told him the stats. Thousands of LGBTQ youth aging out of foster care, discarded like yesterday's news. "No one wants the troubled ones," he said, voice thick. "The ones with records, or scars, or just too much baggage." The words lodged in Joshua's gut, mirroring his own exile. He quit the diner the next week, enrolled in night classes for a social work certification, the itch to build something, anything, burning hotter than fear. Daniel beamed at the news, toasting with cheap bodega wine in their cramped apartment they'd started sharing. "Knew you had it in you, Harlan." That night, bodies tangled in sheets worn thin from too many laundromats, Joshua whispered dreams of a home, not just for them, but for kids like that boy on the float, ones the world had already written off. The first placement came 6 months later. Milo, 8 years old, all sharp elbows and sharper silences, yanked from a group home after his third runaway attempt. His file read like a rap sheet: shoplifting, fights, a mother lost to opioids in Ohio. But Joshua saw the hunger beneath the scowl, the way Milo's fingers twitched for a pencil when he thought no one watched. Daniel helped set up the tiny bedroom in their walk-up, bunk beds squeezed against exposed brick, posters of superheroes papering the walls. "He's gonna test you," Daniel warned, stacking board games they'd scavenged from thrift shops. Joshua nodded, stomach knotted, but when Milo arrived, duffel slung over one shoulder, eyes darting like a cornered animal, something clicked. "Wanna see the fire escape? Best view in Brooklyn," Joshua offered, voice steady. Milo shrugged, but followed. Fatherhood wasn't Hallmark cards. It was 3 a.m. Nightmares where Milo thrashed against ghosts, Joshua holding him through the sobs until dawn cracked the skyline. It was school meetings where teachers whispered, "disruptive," and Joshua biting his tongue to advocate, voice shaking with the echo of his own father's disdain. Daniel was the steady hand, bedtime stories in his warm baritone, soccer drills in the park where he'd let Milo score every time. Their love deepened in the chaos, stolen glances over breakfast chaos, fingers brushing in the dishwater, a quiet, "I love you" murmured as Milo pretended to sleep on the couch. Then came Ellie, 4 years old, A wisp of a girl with braids like twisted vines and eyes that held too much for her age. Placed after her uncle's overdose. She came with a file thicker than Milo's neglect reports, a stutter that worsened under stress. "No one's keeping her long," the caseworker said flatly, as if stating the weather. Joshua's heart cracked open wider. He saw his younger self in her hesitant steps, the way she'd flinch at raised voices. "She's staying," he told Daniel that night, the words a vow. Daniel pulled him into a fierce hug, lips pressing to his temple. "Our family's growing, babe. We're doing this." With two underfoot, their rhythm shifted, playdates at the playground, where Milo taught Ellie to kick a soccer ball, her giggles a rare melody, family movie nights with popcorn wars and Daniel's dramatic voiceovers for the villains. Joshua's certification landed him a gig at the same nonprofit as Daniel, their desks side by side in a bullpen humming with case files and coffee stains. Colleagues ribbed them as the power couple. But it felt earned, hard-won. A life stitched from rejection's threads into something whole. Yet shadows lingered. Joshua's family back home was a black hole. Radio silence broken only by a single postcard from his sister. "Dad's sick. Come home." He burned it in the sink, the ash curling like his resolve. Daniel pushed gently. "Closure's a gift, Josh." But the fear rooted deep, a weed choking the garden they'd planted. The betrayal hit like a freight train on a sticky July evening, the kind where the city air clung like regret. Joshua came home early from a home visit, arms laden with groceries for Ellie's birthday barbecue, water balloons, a cake from the bodega with lopsided frosting. The apartment door was ajar, voices spilling out low and urgent. He froze in the hallway, bags slipping from numb fingers as Daniel's words cut through. "Can't keep pretending, Marcus. Josh is great, but you and me were fire. This domestic shit, it's smothering me, Marcus." The name landed like a gut punch. Joshua knew him vaguely, tall, tattooed, a volunteer at the center with a laugh that turned heads. The pieces slotted cruelly. The late meetings, the phone buzzes Daniel dismissed as spam, the way his touches had grown perfunctory, like checking a box. Peering through the crack, Joshua saw them. Daniel backed against the kitchen counter, Marcus's hands on his hips, lips inches apart in that charged space before surrender. He didn't burst in, didn't scream, just backed away, silent as the ghost he'd once been, fleeing down the stairs with the echo of his father's voice. "You're not enough." The park bench he collapsed on faced the carousel. Families whirling in oblivious joy. Milo's excited chatter from last week's ride mocking him now. How could he tell the kids? How could he shatter this fragile world he'd built from scraps? Daniel's texts lit up his phone like accusations. "Where are you? Milo needs help with homework." Joshua silenced it, wandering the streets until neon blurred into dawn. The Hudson's dark water whispering temptations he shoved down. By morning, he'd crashed at a colleague's couch, the decision stealing in his gut. He'd fight for the kids, not the man who'd made him believe in forever. The confrontation came 2 days later, after Joshua had shuttled Milo and Ellie to Daniel's sisters for the night neutral ground. A white flag. Daniel arrived at his apartment disheveled, eyes red-rimmed. "Josh, God, I fucked up. It was one time, a stupid, drunk mistake after that gala. Marcus means nothing." Joshua stood by the window, arms crossed over the ache in his chest. "One time, or the texts I saw, the way you looked at him like he was oxygen." Daniel crumbled, sinking to the floor, words tumbling out in a torrent. the pressure of fatherhood without the biology, the fear of losing himself in routines, the toxic pull of old patterns from a youth spent chasing highs to outrun his own closets. I love you, Josh. This life, us, it's everything. I panicked. But Joshua saw the truth etched in the spaces between. Love, yes, but laced with resentment, the wild boy in Daniel chafing against the man he'd become. You chose escape over us, Joshua said, voice breaking like thin ice. I was disowned for being me, built this from nothing, and you made me feel safe enough to dream bigger. Then you torched it. Daniel reached for him, but Joshua stepped back, the distance a chasm. The kids stay with me. You can visit, co-parent if you want to earn it. But us, that's done. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal papers and therapy sessions, Joshua navigating custody hearings with a ferocity born of loss. Milo sensed the fracture, his silences deepening into questions. Is Daniel coming back? Did I do something wrong? Joshua held him close. Truths parceled in age-appropriate bites. Grown-ups mess up sometimes, buddy. But family, that's the part we fight for. Ellie, bless her, drew pictures of stick-figure families with extra hearts, her stutter fading in the stability Joshua clawed to provide. Daniel tried. Awkward park handoffs, soccer games from the bleachers, voicemails thick with regret. But trust was a shattered vase, glue never quite holding the cracks. Joshua threw himself into work, advocating for more placements like theirs, turning pain into policy at City Hall panels. The nonprofit buzzed with his passion. Colleagues whispered of promotions, of a man rising from ashes. Climax brewed on a crisp October afternoon. Joshua's birthday. The brownstone they'd eyed for months, now there's a loan. Milo's idea, saved from odd jobs and Daniel's reluctant child support. The kids planned a surprise. Balloons in the living room, a lopsided cake from Ellie's tiny hands, and Daniel at the door, uninvited, holding a wrapped gift and eyes like storm clouds. I need to say this in person, he pleaded as Joshua blocked the threshold. I'm sorry doesn't cut it. I was scared of failing you, them, me. But losing you, that's the real failure. Milo and Ellie peeked from the stairs, tension thick as fog. Joshua's resolve wavered, the old pull tugging, but he glanced at his kids, their hopeful faces a mirror to his own mended heart. You don't get to waltz back in because it's convenient, he said, voice steady. I forgive you, Dan. For me, for us. But love isn't a do-over. It's showing up, every damn day, even when it's hard. Daniel nodded, tears carving tracks, handing over the gift, a leather-bound journal, pages filled with his scrawled apologies, dreams of amends. For whenever you're ready. Or not. He walked away then, shoulders slumped, the door clicking shut like a period on their chapter. In the quiet aftermath, Joshua gathered his kids for cake, laughter bubbling as frosting smeared cheeks. The journal stayed unopened on the shelf, a talisman of what was, not what would be. Months turned to a year, Joshua's advocacy blooming into a foster mentorship program, Harlan's Haven, pulling in volunteers who saw the humanity in the unadoptable. Milo thrived in middle school art club, his sketches of fractured skylines selling at local fairs. Ellie lost her stutter entirely, belting show tunes in the shower. One spring evening, as cherry blossoms dusted the stoop, Joshua sat with a new placement, a 15-year-old trans boy named Kai, wary as a stray but softening under Ellie's relentless hugs. The city hummed around them, a symphony of horns and heartbeats, and Joshua felt it. Not whole, perhaps, but healed. Rejection had forged him, betrayal tempered him, but these small hands in these chosen souls were his redemption. Love, he'd learned, wasn't fireworks or forever promises. It was the quiet radical act of choosing, day after day, to build a table big enough for the broken. And in America's sprawling, scarred heart, where dreams died and reborn in equal measure, Joshua Harlan had found his place. Not at the head, but in the messy, magnificent middle. The journal gathered dust on the mantle, a silent sentinel amid the clutter of action figures and half-finished puzzles that now defined Joshua's world. Kai's arrival had upended the brownstone's fragile equilibrium, teen angst manifesting in slammed doors and midnight scrolls through TikTok feeds laced with dysphoria rants. 15. Kai was a storm cloud with piercings, his binder peeking from under oversized hoodies, voice cracking between baritone lows and unexpected falsettos. "This is bullshit," he'd mutter at dinner, pushing peas around his plate like enemies. "Everyone stares like I'm a freak show." Joshua didn't push. He'd been that kid. Mirrors avoided in church bathrooms. Prayers bartered for normalcy. Instead, he drove Kai to the clinic for hormone blockers, sat through awkward intakes where doctors spoke in clinical tongues. "You're not a freak," he'd say later, over bodega sandwiches on the stoop. "You're Kai. Artist. Smartest. Future heartbreaker." Kai would snort, but his shoulders eased, the armor cracking just enough for vulnerability to seep in. Milo, ever the middle child diplomat, bridged gaps with his dry wit, sketching caricatures of the family that had Kai belly laughing for the first time. A week in. Ellie, the pint-sized therapist, claimed the couch armrest next to him during movie nights, narrating plot twists in her piping voice until Kai's guard dissolved into yawns. Joshua watched it unfold from the kitchen, a swell of pride mixing with the ever-present ache. Daniel's absence was a phantom limb, throbbing on birthdays and parent-teacher nights, but Joshua filled the voids with PDA bake sales and therapy copays, his certification evolving into a full caseload of home visits. Workdays blurred into a rhythm of subway sprints and coffee chugs, the nonprofit's fluorescent halls a hive of urgent whispers. Joshua's program, Harlan's Haven, had ballooned, weekly workshops for foster parents on queer competency, guest speakers from trans advocates to ex-foster youth. It was at one such session, a panel on aging out, that Daniel reappeared not as a ghost, but flesh and blood in the back row, notebook in lap, scribbling furiously. Joshua faltered mid-sentence, the room's hum fading to a buzz in his ears. Daniel looked. Changed. Leaner, perhaps, the wild curls tamed into a professional cut, laugh lines softened by something like regret. After a straggler's milled, Daniel approached, hands shoved deep in khakis. "Heard about the program. Had to see it." Joshua nodded curtly, stacking flyers like shields. "It's good work. Kids need it." They talked shop then, awkward at first, circling cases like old boxers. Daniel had transferred to a different agency, focusing on youth housing in the Bronx, his fire redirected but undimmed. "You were right," he admitted over vending machine sodas in the break room. "About showing up. I've been volunteering at a shelter, coaching a queer youth basketball league. Trying to make it right." Joshua searched his face for lies, found only raw edges. "Good for you," he said, meaning it, the bitterness dulled to something navigable. Co-parenting thawed in fits and starts. Daniel showed for Milo's art exhibit, clapping loudest at the abstract piece titled Cracks in the Skyline, swirls of blue and black evoking their shared fractures. He braided Ellie's hair before school plays, his fingers gentle, stories of his abuela's folktales weaving magic into the mundane. Kai eyed him warily at first, "Who's the suit?" but softened when Daniel shared his own coming-out war stories, complete with botched first kisses and family fallout. Joshua kept boundaries ironclad. No overnights, no lingering after drop-offs, but the kids bridged what he couldn't. One Hanukkah, Ellie's fascination with candles pulling them into the tradition. Daniel arrived with lax from a Jewish deli in Midtown, grease stains on his scarf. The brownstone glowed with tea lights, laughter echoing as Milo bested Kai at dreidel, coins scattering like confetti. Joshua caught Daniel's eye across the table, a flicker of old heat, quickly doused. "This is nice," Daniel murmured as he helped clear plates, suds bubbling between them. Joshua dried a glass. Deliberate. "Yeah. For them." Spring brought green shoots to the window boxes Ellie tended, her small hands caked in soil, whispering secrets to the basil. Joshua's promotion came quietly, a corner office, more budget for Haven. Celebrated with ice cream at Ample Hills, the kids' faces smeared with salted caramel. But success amplified the hollows. Nights alone. Joshua scrolled old photos, Daniel's arm around him at Coney Island, wind-whipped and grinning. The journal tempted, spine creased from idle fingers, but he resisted, fearing the flood. The second fracture came unexpectedly, a phone call from Tennessee shattering the idyll. His sister, Lila, voice quavering over static. "Dad's gone. Josh. Heart attack. Funeral's Friday. Mom. She wants you there." The words hung, a noose reformed. Joshua paced the living room, kids' Abed, the skyline mocking with its indifferent sparkle. Daniel arrived unbidden. Lila must have called him too, bearing takeout and that steady gaze. "You don't have to go," he said, unpacking lo mein on the coffee table. "But if you do, I'm driving." The road south was a time warp. I-95 unspooling memories Joshua had buried. Church picnics, fireflies in mason jars, his father's proud hand on his little league shoulder, before the confession, the exile. Daniel drove in shifts, playlists of Cash and Coulter filling silences, his presence a buffer against the ghosts. They stopped at diners with checkered floors, Joshua picking at grits while Daniel demolished biscuits and gravy. "You think they'll have changed?" Joshua asked once, dawn painting the dashboard gold. Daniel squeezed his knee, brief as breath. "People don't. But you have." Nashville enveloped like a fever dream, humid air thick with jasmine and judgment, the Harlan homestead sagging under magnolias. Lila hugged him fierce at the door, whispering, "He asked for you at the end. Said he was sorry." Mom hovered, eyes averted, the Bible on the side table a familiar sentinel. The funeral was a blur of condolences and casseroles, old neighbors stealing glances at Joshua and Daniel, the friend from New York, introduced with careful neutrality. Whispers slithered. "That's the reason." In the cemetery, dirt clumping under polished shoes, Joshua stood at the grave's edge, eulogy burning unsaid on his tongue. Daniel's hand brushed his, hidden by the crowd, a lifeline. That night, in the guest room of his childhood home, posters faded to ghosts, Joshua cracked open the journal at last. Daniel's words spilled. Regrets inked raw, visions of amends, a love letter to the man he'd nearly lost. I see you now, Josh. All of you. And I'd build it all again, just to deserve you. Tears-soaked pages. Catharsis ripping through like summer thunder. Down the hall, Mom knocked softly, entering with chamomile tea and trembling hands. I was wrong, she whispered, voice cracking. Your father. He loved you. Feared losing you to a world he didn't understand. Forgive me? Joshua pulled her close. The dam breaking, sobs mingled, years dissolving in salt. Daniel waited outside, giving space, but his eyes held quiet victory when Joshua emerged. Lighter, unburdened. The drive north was lighter, stories flowing freer. Daniel's abuela's tamales, Joshua's secret honky-tonk dances. At a rest stop in Virginia, under sodium lamps, they kissed, tentative, then deepening, the past's weight lifting like fog. No rushing, Joshua murmured against his lips. Daniel nodded, foreheads pressed. Just us. Slow as we need. Back in Brooklyn, the brownstone welcomed with chaos. Milo's science fair volcano erupting in the kitchen. Ellie's finger paint murals on the fridge. Kai strumming a borrowed guitar to indie anthems. Daniel moved back in phases. Toothbrush first, then weekends, rebuilding brick by tentative brick. Trust mended in small acts. Daniel's early morning runs with Milo. Therapy dates where he unpacked his fears. Date nights at hole-in-the-wall Takarius where hands intertwined under tables. Harlan's haven thrived. Grants pouring in. Joshua keynoting at conferences on resilient families. One panel, in D.C., he spoke of rejection's forge. We don't choose our scars, but we choose our healing. And sometimes, that's enough to change the world. Daniel sat front row, pride radiating, their eyes locking in silent vow. Summer crested with a backyard bash, string lights twinkling, grill smoke curling, neighbors mingling with Foster alums. Kai came out fully there, binder swapped for a crop top, cheers erupting as he danced with a cute boy from the program. Ellie twirled in a sundress, Milo DJing from a Bluetooth speaker. Joshua and Daniel swayed slow on the grass, kids orbiting like stars. We made this, Daniel whispered, breath warm on Joshua's neck. You made this, as fireflies blinked in the dusk. Joshua felt the circle complete. Not perfect, but profoundly human. In America's vast tapestry, woven with threads of loss and love, they'd stitched their own pattern. Flawed, fierce, forever. Autumn painted Brooklyn in fire, leaves crunching underfoot as Joshua navigated the school's open house. Ellie tugging his sleeve toward her kindergarten cubby. Look, Daddy Josh, my drawing of us. Crayon strokes depicted a quartet. Stick figures with hearts for heads. Kai's spikes unmistakable. Milo's soccer ball aloft. Daniel lingered by the door, chatting with a dad about fantasy football, his easy charm a balm to Joshua's nerves. Co-parenting had evolved into partnership. The Brownstones' rooms echoing with their blended rhythms. Daniel's salsa nights clashing gloriously with Joshua's country playlists. But harmony hid undercurrents. Kai's hormones kicked in hard. Mood swings slamming like subway doors. Euphoria 1 hour, isolation the next. Nobody gets it, he'd snap, barricading in his room, music blasting walls. Joshua knocked gently, memories of his own teen turmoil guiding his words. I do, kiddo. More than you know. Inside, posters of Billie Eilish and Elliot Page plastered rebellion. Kai curled on the bed, eyes puffy. They talked then, raw, unfiltered, about binders binding tighter than secrets, the terror of voices dropping like anchors. Daniel joined later, sharing his first Pride March, the thrill of flags waving like permission. Milo's challenges brewed subtler, a straight-A student buckling under middle school whispers. Kids say I'm weird 'cause of, two dads now. He confessed one evening, homework abandoned. Joshua's gut twisted, echoes of Tennessee taunts, but Daniel fielded it smooth, pulling out the journal. "Wanna hear how your pops and I messed up big before getting here? Real talk. Love's messy, but it's yours to define." Milo grinned, the weight lifting, and they co-wrote a school essay on chosen families, words fierce as his sketches. Joshua's work intensified, Haven expanding to satellite sites in Queens and the Bronx, Daniel's housing initiative partnering for seamless transitions. Late nights blurred into strategy sessions over takeout, their synergy electric, Joshua's empathy fueling Daniel's logistics, ideas sparking like live wires. But success bred envy. A colleague, sharp-tongued Vanessa from Intake, cornered Joshua in the copy room one fluorescent afternoon. "You're the golden boy now, Harlan. But don't forget, glass houses." Her barb landed oblique. But later, whispers reached him. Rumors of Daniel's old habits. A bar sighting with Marcus, the ghost resurrected. Joshua confronted over dinner that night. Kids at soccer practice. The table set with Daniel's carnitas but tension thick as fog. "Is it true? You and him again?" Daniel's fork clattered, face paling. "One drink. Josh. Colleague thing, networking. Nothing more." But the defensiveness rang hollow, and Joshua's trust, so painstakingly rebuilt, frayed anew. Networking? Or nostalgia? Silence stretched, Daniel's eyes pleading, but Joshua rose, clearing plates with mechanical clinks. "I can't keep gluing this." Not with the kids watching. The fight simmered into space. Daniel crashing at his sisters, Joshua solo parenting with gritted teeth. Milo picked up the vibes, art turning darker, fractured faces in charcoal. Ellie regressed, thumb slipping back into mouth during stories. Kai, sharp as ever, called it, "Dad's fighting again? Great. Just what I need, another breakup." His sarcasm masked hurt, lashing out in skipped meds, a school suspension for mouthing off. Joshua juggled it all, Haven deadlines looming, his own therapy sessions devolving into rants about patterns repeating like bad country songs. Climax crested at a Haven gala, black tie affair in a loft overlooking the harbor, donors mingling with champagne flutes. Joshua keynote, voice steady on stage, "Foster care isn't charity, it's revolution. Every kid we lift is a vote against abandonment." Applause thundered. Daniel in the wings, tucks sharp, eyes locked with pride and pain. Post-speech, as Joshua navigated schmoozes, Vanessa sidled up, breath wine-soured. "Nice words. Shame about the home front. Heard your boy's been entertaining." Rage boiled, Joshua whirling to find Daniel across the room, Marcus's hand on his elbow, laughter shared too intimately. The pieces shattered, betrayal not in isolation, but woven into their rebuild. He stormed over, voice low thunder. "Get your hands off my husband." Marcus smirked, backing away. Didn't know he was collared, but Daniel's face crumpled, realization dawning. "Josh, wait." The alley outside was a refuge, city din muffled, Joshua's bow tie yanked loose like a noose. "How long this time? Months? While I pour my soul into us." Daniel slumped against brick, words fracturing. "It's not Marcus is pushing a collab for the housing project. Flirty. Yeah. But I shut it down. Every time. Joshua laughed bitter. Tears hot. Shut it down? Or just delay the inevitable? You're a moth. Dan. Flame chasing. Burning what you love. The truth clawed out then. Daniel's confessions a deluge. The addict pull of validation. The fear that domesticity dulled his edges. Therapy revelations of attachment wounds from his own fractured home. I want this, you. The kids, but I'm terrified I'll fuck it up again. Marcus is safe because he's nothing. Joshua reeled. The gala's lights mocking from afar. Safe? Or selfish? I disowned my blood for authenticity. You? You're half in. Always hedging. They parted raw. Daniel to a hotel. Joshua Ubering home to tuck in the kids. Their trusting sleeps a knife twist. Dawn brought resolve. A family meeting. Truth's age-dosed. Milo nodded solemn. Ellie hugged fierce. We fix it, Daddy. Kai's cynicism cracking into tentative hope. Joshua filed for counseling. Boundaries redrawn. Separate beds. Joint therapy. Daniel's phone transparency. Healing was glacial. Sessions dissecting like autopsies. Daniel owning his patterns. Joshua unpacking resentment's roots. Haven paused expansions. Focus inward. But the kids anchored. Milo's exhibit win. A portrait of them all titled Mended. Ellie's school play, where she cast Daniel as the prodigal dad. Kai's first date, prepped with awkward dad jokes and genuine cheers. Winter blanketed the brownstone in quiet, snow muffling streets as they rebuilt. Daniel volunteered extra at Haven, his insights gold, earning Joshua's respect anew. Date nights resumed, slow, intentional, picnics in Prospect Park, where hands held without hurry. One Valentine's, Daniel knelt not in proposal, but promise, a keychain etched choose daily, eyes vulnerable. I'm all in, Josh. No flames but ours. Joshua took it, heart thawing. The journal now a shared relic, pages added with their joint reflections. Spring bloom tentative. Family therapy yielding breakthroughs. Kai's coming out letter to his bio mom. Met with cautious reply. Milo's essay published in a youth zine. Ellie's stutter banished forever in song. Yet humanism whispered deeper. Not perfection, but persistence. Joshua spoke at a pride rally. Daniel beside. Kids waving signs. Love rebuilds. The crowd roared. A tapestry of scars and stars. America's pulse beating resilient. In quiet moments, Joshua traced Daniel's knuckles. Gratitude swelling. They'd fallen, risen, fallen again, but each scar mapped growth. A testament to love's stubborn alchemy. Summer scorched the city into submission. Asphalt shimmering as Joshua herded the brood to Coney Island. Sand gritty under towels. The cyclone's screams a joyful cacophony. Kai, now 16 and blooming into his frame, raced Milo to the waves. Ellie's shrieks piercing as Daniel hoisted her piggyback. Salt spray kissing their laughs. It was a snapshot of mending, therapy's toolkit yielding fruits. Daniel's sponsor meetings for his flame addiction. Joshua's boundary workshops turning vulnerability into strength. But under the sunscreen and snow cones lurked the underbelly. Foster life's unpredictability a constant hum. Kai's bio-family surfaced like a riptide, a court hearing summoning them south to Virginia for reunification eval. They want me back, Kai said over breakfast, voice flat, binder straps digging into shoulders. Joshua's coffee turned bitter. He'd seen the stats, reunifications failing 60% of the time. Kids yo-yoed back to trauma. Daniel fielded the call to the lawyer. his calm a counter to Joshua's churn. "We fight fair, but we fight," he said, squeezing Joshua's thigh under the table. The hearing was a gauntlet, sterile courtroom. Kai's mom tear-streaked in knockoff pearls, stepdad shifting uneasy. Joshua testified measured, progress charts, therapy notes, the brownstone's stability. "He's not a case file. He's our son." The judge ruled monitored visits, a compromise that left Kai hollow-eyed, packing for weekends away. Those absences carved voids. Milo moping over absent chess partner, Ellie drawing missing Kai cards. Joshua and Daniel filled with family game nights. But tension simmered. Daniel's late shifts clashing with Joshua's haven travels. A weekend conference in Chicago leaving Daniel solo parenting. "Go," Daniel urged, kissing him at the gate. "We've got this." The trip was a whirlwind. Panels on policy reform, networking with wonks but solitude bred reflection. Hotel bar, urban neat. Joshua scrolled family pics. Ellie's gap-toothed grin, Milo's latest mural. A text from Daniel pinged. "Kids good. Miss you. P.S. Marcus called, told him off for good." Relief washed, but so did doubts whisper. Back home, the airport reunion was all squeals and hugs, but Kai's return from visit 2 days later shattered it. Bruise blooming on his cheek. Story of accidental fall crumbling under questions. Fury ignited. Joshua lawyering up for emergency custody. Daniel pacing the living room like a caged wolf. "No kid deserves that," he growled, phone glued to ear with child services. The emergency hearing was swift. Kai's tearful testimony sealing the protective order. Full custody to Joshua and Daniel. Bio ties severed. In the aftermath, Kai curled fetal on the couch, Joshua stroking his hair. "You're safe. Here. Always," Daniel added softly. "Families the ones who stay." The wind bonded them deeper. Daniel's protectiveness a fierce counter to past lapses. But conflict brewed domestic. Haven's board pushed expansion. Joshua tapped for director, the role demanding relocations to a midtown office. "It's a game changer," he enthused over dinner. Kids slurping spaghetti. Daniel's fork paused, jaw tight. "And us? Commute from Brooklyn to Manhattan daily? With pickups. Practices." The argument erupted post-bedtime. Voices hushed but heated. "This is my dream, Dan, helping more kids like ours." Daniel fired back. "Our dream. But you're chasing accolades while I hold the fort." It escalated. Old wounds reopening. Joshua accusing burnout avoidance. Daniel labeling ambition as escape. A slammed door. Daniel storming to the fire escape. Joshua sinking to the kitchen floor. Sobs muffled in knees. Dawn brought ceasefire. Coffee black. Apologies raw. "We're a team," Joshua said, lacing fingers. No solo runs. They compromised hybrid schedule. Daniel stepping up to part-time consulting. Balance recalibrated. Fall deepened resolve. Thanksgiving a mosaic of gratitude. Lila visiting from Nashville. Her partner in tow. Toasting to mended Harlan's. Mom's letters arrived sporadic, halting bridges. Recipes clipped with "thinking of you." Joshua read them aloud to the kids. Tears mingling with laughs at her fried chicken tips. Kai experimented in the kitchen. Non-binary flag pinned to his apron. Whipping up vegan twists that had Daniel moaning approval. Climax loomed with Haven's annual gala redux. Bigger stakes. Major donor pitch for a youth center. Joshua prepped relentlessly, nerves jangling like keys. Daniel coached mock pitches, his feedback gold. But the night before, Disaster. Flu felling the keynote speaker. Bored eyes on Joshua. Sleepless. He rehearsed till throat raw. Daniel massaging shoulders at 2 a.m. You've got this. We're right here. The loft pulsed with power suits and pearls. Joshua's suit tailored sharp. Daniel dapper in velvet lapels. As MC called him up, nausea surged, spotlights blinding, faces blurring. Words stuck, the room's hush oppressive. Then, from the crowd, Ellie's tiny voice piped, "Daddy Josh is the best." Laughter rippled, tension shattering. Joshua grinned, diving in. Stories of Kai's resilience. Milo's art. Anonymous triumphs. These kids aren't statistics, they're symphonies. And we're the conductors. The pitch landed, checks flowing, applause a tidal wave. Backstage, Daniel crushed him in a hug, lips claiming in euphoric heat. My hero. The after-party swirled, but they slipped out early, hailing a cab to the brownstone. Kids with Lila. In their bed, lovemaking rediscovered, slow, sacred, bodies mapping familiar terrains with new reverence. I choose you, Daniel whispered post-climax, breath ragged. Joshua echoed, heart full. Winter whispered permanence. Daniel proposing formally, not on bended knee but over burnt pancakes. Ring in a cereal box. Everyday magic. Joshua said yes amid laughter. Kids cheering with milk mustaches. The wedding was low-key rooftop in spring. Rainbow boutonnieres. Lila officiating with tear-choked vows. Vows exchanged. In fractures and fires. I choose us. But humanism tempered joy. A Haven kid lost to overdose. The grief communal. Therapy circles holding space. Joshua mourned publicly, advocating harder for mental health funding. Daniel's league expanded. Queer youth shooting hoops under his wing. The brownstone brimmed. Sleepovers. Study marathons. Daniel's abuela visiting with empanadas and stories. One starlit night. Family stargazing on the roof. Ellie pointed. That's our constellation, the Harlans. Kai snorted. Milo sketched it quick. Daniel pulled Joshua close. In America's churning sea, they'd navigated storms, emerging not unscathed, but unbreakable. A testament to love's quiet revolution, one chosen heart at a time. Summer's sequel brought expansion pains. The New Haven Youth Center ribbon cut with fanfare. Mayoral speech. Kids choir belting anthems. Joshua's nameplate gleaming on the door. 30. He felt the weight. Director by day. Dad by dusk. Husband in stolen moments. Daniel thrived in semi-retirement. Consulting gigs flexible for carpools and coaching. His flame tamed to hearth. Balance looks good on you. Reyes. Joshua teased over Morning Joe, stealing a kiss amid toast crumbs. Kai's senior year loomed. College apps a battlefield. Scholarships for trans advocates. Essays raw on identity's forge. NYU or bust, he declared, portfolio bursting with graphic designs. Milo hit puberty's awkward stride. Braces glinting in soccer grins. Crushes confessed in hushed post-game debriefs. Ellie, now 8, bloomed bossy, class president, violin prodigy, her recitals drawing standing ovations. You're all mushy, she'd giggle at their handholds, but her hugs lingered longest. Yet ripples disturbed. Joshua's mom, frail at 70, a fall landing her in assisted care. Nashville called again, this time Joshua driving solo, Daniel holding the fort. The facility smelled of antiseptic and regret. Mom's room a shrine to absences, his little league trophies dusty. wedding invite framed by her bed. "I see it now," she rasped, hand frail in his. "The family you built." Proud. Tears forged final peace. Joshua staying through her rally. Stories swapped of his childhood mischief. Back north. He shared it all. Daniel's embrace absolution. Conflict crested subtly. Haven's board eyeing national scaling. Joshua courted for D.C. Liaison. A promotion dangling relocation. Think about it, the chair urged over steak at Delmonico's. Change the system from the inside. Home. He broached it tentative. Temporary, maybe a year. Bigger impact. Daniel's face shuddered. Fork scraping plate. And us? Uproot the kids mid-high school? Kai's apps. Milo's team. The dinner cooled. Kids' chatter filling voids. Arguments snowballed. Joshua defending legacy. Daniel guarding roots. "This isn't about ego," Joshua snapped one night. Wine glasses clinking sharp. "It's for every kid like them," Daniel countered. Voice edged. "Or proving you're more than the reject. We're enough." "Josh here. Now." The word stung. Echoing old insecurities. Joshua storming to the office. Laptop glowing accusations. Mediation came via family council, kids included. Voices amplified. Kai, DC? Lame. Stay. Build here. Milo, I'd miss my friends. And you both. Ellie. Wise beyond. Families together. Not on maps. Their candor pierced. Joshua tabling the offer. Board accommodating remote leads. Daniel's apology arrived handwritten. "Fear makes me small. You're my north." Forgiveness bloomed in amends. A weekend getaway to the Catskills. Cabin rented. No cells. Just hikes and hearthside truths. Climax unfolded at Kai's graduation. Auditorium electric with mortarboards and cheers. Valedictorian nod. His speech a mic drop. I was the problem child, shuffled like cards. But here, I found hands that held, not hit. To the Joshuas and Daniels, thank you for seeing me whole. Tissues passed. Daniel's arm iron around Joshua's shoulders. Pride a shared pulse. Post-ceremony, college acceptances toasted at Junior's Cheesecake. Kai's NYU envelope gold embossed. But life's humanism laced joy with shadow. A Haven alum, placed years back. Reached out, overdose scare. Relapse raw. Joshua drove to the ER. Holding vigil as tubes snaked. Daniel coordinating support. We can't save 'em all, Joshua whispered later. Exhaustion heavy. Daniel cupped his face. But we try. That's the point. The kids stabilized. Haven's aftercare beefed up. A reminder. Impact rippled. Not revolutionized overnight. Fall ushered milestones. Milo's bar mitzvah. Ellie's curiosity sparking conversion classes. Daniel's abuela's 90th. A Queen's bash with piñatas and polkas. Joshua officiated a Haven wedding. 2 alums. Queer and cherished, vows mirroring his own. Winter holidays blended traditions. Christmas tree twinkling beside menorah. Lila's Nashville kin joining for lax and luminarias. Spring whispered legacy. Joshua's book deal. Chosen fires. Stories from the margins. Memoirs interwoven with policy. Daniel illustrated covers. Kids beta reading chapters. Launch party at the center. Shelves stocked. Readings packed. One signing. An elderly man approached. Joshua's old pastor. Bible Belt ghost. Heard your story. My boys like you scared. This helps. Handshake firm. Absolution unspoken. As cherry blossoms returned. The brownstone stoop hosted annual block party. Grills smoking, kids slip and slide slick. Neighbors toasting Harlan Reyes' resilience. Joshua watched Daniel chase Ellie. Milo DJing. Kai home from dorms with a boyfriend in tow, tall, tattooed, but kind-eyed. Laughter swelled, the skyline a canvas of conquests. In quiet dusk, Joshua and Daniel swayed to faint jazz, kids' chaos orbiting. "We made it," Joshua murmured, head on shoulder. Daniel's lips brushed ear. "And we'll keep making it. Every damn day." America's heart, bruised and beating, held their story, a gay reject turned reluctant revolutionary. Betrayal's ashes birthing unbreakable bonds. Human, heroic, home.